So how do you know the difference between God's voice and your own thoughts? Hi, my name is Jachaya Williams. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a blessed day. And how do you tell the difference between God's voice? Like, how do you actually hear God's voice? And I can remember a time and a season where I couldn't hear God's voice. And it was very discouraging to me because I wanted the Lord to speak to me. I wanted the Lord to speak a word to me that I've heard that other people have experienced and things of that nature. And so God had to teach me how to actually hear his voice, how to actually get in his presence to hear his voice. And so what I'm going to start out with is what God's voice actually doesn't sound like. Okay. And so God's voice is not going to discourage you. God's voice is not going to shame you, rush you, confuse you, or condemn you. Okay. Because God doesn't condemn. And so all of these things that I just mentioned, God's voice is not going to sound like that. And so we all know that's the voice of the enemy when, you're getting discouraged or you're getting shamed on, or you feel like you're in a rush and you have to do it quickly. That's not of God's character. And so what God's voice does sound like is he's going to steal you, lead you, reassure you, encourage you, convict you, and calm you. I can't tell you how many times that I've got in the presence of God and I needed that calm voice to just speak life into me, to speak words into me. And once you get that experience, it's like no other. Okay. And so, how do you actually begin to get into hearing God's voice? Okay. One of the first things that you can do is pray and ask the Lord to speak to you. Just pray and ask the Lord, can you speak a word to me? And actually get your mind on Jesus first before you ask that, and actually sit in his presence and wait until he speaks to you. One of my favorite ways that I love to hear the Lord's voice is I like to grab a notebook and I like to pray that same prayer and say, Lord, can you speak to me? And I just allow the pen to move. I just allow the pen to move and allow God to speak to me through journaling. And oh my God, it's a whole nother level and experience with God when you grab a journal and you just say, Lord, speak to me. And you just begin to write down whatever comes to your mind first thing. It's totally amazing. And stuff like that. So again, another way that you can hear God's voice is that when you put your mind on Jesus and you actually get in his presence, whether that's putting on worship music or whether that's just having a regular conversation like I am with you guys right now. Whatever thought comes to mind first, when you put your mind on Jesus and you get in his presence, that's from Jesus. Okay. And so it's really easy to hear God's voice, especially when you get rid of all of those other voices in your head. And that could look like you listening to certain type of music and then those thoughts are in your head. The enemy's in your head, your own thoughts, and stuff like that. And so if the thoughts does not push you towards God, or if you have thoughts and you're like, okay, is this going to bring me closer to God or is this going to bring me further away from God? That's another way you can determine which voice is what. And things of that nature. So I always ask that when I have a thought, and you really need to understand that, you don't have to sit with those thoughts. I really want to explain that. You don't have to sit with those thoughts. Okay. You can always take those thoughts captive and give them to the Lord. A lot of people forget that, and they just allow those thoughts to beat you up, allow those thoughts to just be roaming in your mind. And we don't have to agree with every single thought that comes to our head. Okay. And so it took me a very long time to learn that we do not have to agree with the thoughts that comes to our mind. Okay. Especially if they are not pushing us towards God. And so again, I'm going to say it again. God's voice steals you. It leads you. It reassures you. It encourages you. it convicts you, and it calms you down. Okay. And so, and God's voice is full of love. And so how you like God's voice, it sounds like a little bit of your own, but and you can tell it really isn't. Okay. Because God's voice is like gentle and firm. Okay. And so that's how he speaks to me. He always speaks to me gentle. And then like when he needs to straighten me up and get me in line, he brings out his firm voice so he can let me know that he means business, and stuff like that. But other than that, 90% of the time he's speaking to me in his gentle voice, and it's just amazing. And once you really learn the difference between what God does not say to you and what he does, it's going to become easier to hear the voice of God versus your own thoughts, versus the enemy's thoughts that he's trying to put into your mind. And so again, asking the question, is this going to bring me closer to God, or is this going to push me away from God? And so but yeah, once you really practice, because it's a learning experience. Okay, give yourself grace if you don't have it down packed just yet. Okay, it's coming. And so give yourself grace. Okay, you made it this far. Okay, and so you made it this far, so pat yourself on the back. You're doing well. God is proud of you. And so the more that you spend time with God, and the closer you get to God, that's how you're going to be able to discern between the voices. Okay, that's how you're going to be able to know God's voice and learn of him and how he speaks to you, because God speaks to every single one of his children differently, but it's still coming from his word. Oh, and that's another thing that you can know God's voice. God is always going to speak from his word to know. And so me and God came up with a little code word. Okay, and so to know, like for me to know if it's from him or not, because I'm an overthinker. Okay, anybody that's an overthinker knows. Okay, and so I'm an overthinker. So me and God came up with like a cold sentence. And so I was like, Lord, I said, how my mind works. I need you to let me know that it's you. And so every single time that he comes to me with something, and I kind of like question it, I'd be like, what? No. The Lord be like, Kaya, it's me. And it's like, he continues repeatedly says it's me. And so I was like, Lord, I need you to repeat it 3 times so I can know that is you. And every single time he is on point. Especially, it doesn't happen every single time, but it's like you have those moments where you like, is it really from God, or is it my own thoughts? And so every single time that I need him to come through on that, he does it. And so if it gets to the point where you and God need to come up with a code sentence or a code name, so it's between you and God, so you can know if it's from God, go and do that. God has no problem working with you on this journey. That's what he wants you to do. Like, he wants to do life with you. He wants to speak with you. He wants to have a relationship with you. So whatever you guys need to do to work it out, go and talk to him about it. Y'all work it out, and stuff like that. But yeah, that is how you can determine which voice is which, if it's your own thoughts, or if it's God's voice, or if it's the enemy's voice. And like I said, give yourself grace. It takes time to learn God's voice, but I'm telling you, the more you spend time with God, the more you're going to learn. Okay, the more you're going to learn. And so this is all I have for you guys today. I really hope it encouraged you, blessed you, or even just taught you a little something about how God works just a little further in your journey. And that is all I have. And so I will see you guys in the next video, and I love you. Bye. Have a great day.